Hi, this is Ramesh. I wanted to talk about the yellow metal, the gold prices. In the recent past, actually, you would have noticed that the gold prices started going south. I mean, the gold, the sheen went off the yellow metal and then it started going down, right? So now I just wanted to explain a little bit about that. And before that, actually, in the month of January, the gold had hit an all-time high. So, like, if I have to give you some numbers to for you to understand, it's about 24 karat gold was about 18,000 rupees in the month of January, and then when the war started, it was about 17,300, and then it actually went down to almost 14,300 by March 24th. And then afterwards, actually, the pause button was stuck, and then it's again back to about 15,000. So now, why does this gold go down and come up and all those things? Just thought of talking a little bit about that. So, see, typically what happens is the stock market, the capital markets, and the gold, when we look at their relationship, they both are inversely proportional. So whenever the capital markets are gung-ho, the capital markets are doing really well and there is a bull run, then actually people take money off from the gold and then they start investing they park their funds into the stock market because they get better valuations and the markets give them good returns. So they put money into the stock market. So, but what at the same time, whenever there is a black swan event, there is a global black swan event and something goes wrong, and all over the world, when the market starts crashing, then what investors do is that they get little panicky and then they say instead of leaving our money in the stock market where it is going to go down, they will want to they do some kind of drawdowns, they take money out from the table and then when they have the cash in their hands, they go for safe haven. So which is actually they go for gold, so the yellow metals. And the yellow metal actually prices start galloping up. So it starts going north. So the capital markets, when it goes down and this starts going up, right? So if this theory was true, then whenever when we had this US-Iran, Israel war, which started on February 28th, typically speaking, the gold prices should have gone up. But on the contrary, the gold, yellow metals started losing some sheen and the gold started going down. So this is a little funny, right? Because markets also started going down and the gold also started going down. So you generally don't see this kind of a thing happening usually. Why did this happen? So this happened because when the gold started, when the war started, it actually impacted hugely on the energy crisis. So because the Strait of Hormuz was a choke point, and then that got closed, and then crude oil and the natural gas couldn't come out of the Strait of Hormuz. So there was lesser supply of the crude and the natural gas. So which is why then the price of the crude oil started going up. The price went up from as low as about $58-60 per barrel all the way to about $138 per barrel. So that was the peak at which it went. Now, when that happens, all the countries actually, most of the countries rely heavily on the energy, on the crude oil and on the natural gas. So when that happens, every country has to shell out more dollars to buy the same quantity of the crude oil that they were buying earlier. So when that happens, their forex starts going down a little because they are actually paying a huge amount of dollars. And that also starts strengthening the dollar because the dollar demand starts. And of course, they wanted to replenish the dollars in their forex. So which is why they started to sell the gold from their vaults and then they started buying dollars to replenish their forex reserves. So when that happens, there is tremendous gold availability in the international market and the dollars actually started going scarce. So which is why the dollar started strengthening. The dollar is appreciating. The dollar is strengthening in the international market. And gold actually, since there was a lot of supply in the system, then the gold started going down. Now, so if I have to sum it up, right, there was energy crisis because of the Strait of Hormuz, and which resulted in the crude supply going down. And when the crude supply went down, the equilibrium price of the crude started going up. So with that, there was more dollars that they had to pull out from their forex to buy the crude. And to replenish the dollars, most of the central banks started to sell gold to replenish the dollars. So this is why, and also there is an inflationary hit which is going to happen because of the crude going up, the price going up. So all of this resulted in the gold actually going down. And recently, actually, in the month of January, the gold hit an all-time high. It went up to 18,000. As I said, the 24 karat gold went up to 18,000 rupees. So why did that happen was because most of the countries, India including, they went for something called de-dollarization. So they started selling the US Treasury bonds, and then they started buying more of yellow metals and then dumping it in their gold vaults. So which is why actually the gold started becoming very expensive. So now suddenly actually the whole thing has turned around, and the dollar has started becoming very strong, and the gold has lost its sheen. So I do not know if this is a plan. There is a strategy by the US to do this, and which is why the war happened. So all of this we have to wait and see. Thank you.